What's up, guys? It's Nex with the Nex Adventure. This next video vlog is more of a shout out to my kids. Actually, this whole series is a shout out to my kids. It's basically a love letter to them that hopefully someday they could watch back and learn something from. But I just wanted to share some of my thoughts and on why I started my fishing journey and what I've learned on my fishing journey and how I addressed some of my health and mental health issues during my journey. And hopefully anyone who watches this, especially my kids, could get something out of it. If not information or motivation, but even just entertainment. But anyway, you guys, hope you enjoy the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for listening.
How do I start recording? I forgot.
A few years ago, I went through a turbulent time, which changed the way I looked and approached my life. Throughout my entire adult life, I suffered from severe depression and inhibited my daily routines and relationships I held with others, including the people I loved most and held closest. Though I was working full-time and keeping my days and nights busy, I secretly was feeling lost and confused about where I stood in life and my overall purpose. I recognized the amount of family and loved ones who are also suffering from deep depression, with even many of those who succumbed to their depression and decided to end their journeys early, which I always empathized with, and it was always motivation for me to fight harder. But at the same time, it caused me to keep my depression as much as I could to myself. That was a mistake. I would hold myself up in my room, staying away from everyone I could in order to keep my depression to myself. I would wrap myself up into my own projects, whether it was music, photography, video, whatever I could to keep my mind moving and keep my depression away from people. Inadvertently, I began hurting the closest people in my life, namely my children. From what I thought was protecting them, turned out to be the worst thing imaginable to me. I was abusing those I loved by neglecting their needs and prioritizing my own needs above theirs. It took a very long time for me to see this or accept this. Fast forward to a few years ago, my children now adults, most of my acquaintances and friendships now gone and dissipated. I was learning where my depression had led me. By giving into my demons and darkness, not only did I slip further into my depression, but now I had driven away all those who kept me going throughout the years. Instead of being a positive influence on my children, I realized I was nothing but stress and sadness for them. Thankfully, my older kids, who are now adults, decided it was a good time to tell me how much I wasn't there for them and how much I let them down. They told me I didn't deserve to be a father, and that crushed every fiber in me. I wasn't worried about being a good or bad person at this time. I only wanted to answer their questions as to why I wasn't more present in their lives, why I was always so distant and didn't participate in family events and gatherings. I tried my best to explain to them that I was in a deep depression for years and that I was too distracted with my own selfishness. I never meant to say these things to excuse myself, but as a way to be honest, but they took it only as an excuse. I haven't spoken or seen them in years now. It was at that time I decided to let go of all the selfishness and depression that I knew, knowing where I had led myself and pursue what it was that I was missing, my own sense of self-worth. But where to begin? All I knew at this point was that I was unhealthy, grumpy, depressed, lacking direction, now that being a father wasn't a viable or automatic purpose. If I wanted to be a father, I had to learn to teach myself how to be a proper one. I looked at myself and asked why I couldn't just wake up every morning and be a good father. There was no excuse, but only reasons why I could allow myself to be distracted from my true calling. I recognized that not having these close relationships with my mother and father, I, myself, didn't know how to carry close relationships with my own kids. For years I grew to know that I could take care of myself, even with the lack of my parents in my life, but that evolved into a bad habit of only looking out for myself. I began reading and watching research on parenting, toxic relationships, narcissism, narcissistic disorders, addiction, and abuse. I started learning about how to carry positive relationships with people. It wasn't and still isn't the most natural or easiest endeavor for me, but because I love my family and kids, I did and am doing my best. By fishing, it gave me time to reflect on these things and how I could better my perspective. But I realized early on in my fishing journey that something was still missing. My body and mind were still not in tune. I realized that my physical health, namely my diabetes, which I suffered with through the past 25 plus years, my fatty liver, my high blood pressure, my high cholesterol, was inhibiting my ability to grow to my fullest potential. Thankfully, through fishing, living in my van, sleeping in the cold, spending the majority of my weeks in cold, windy, and uncomfortable environments, made me realize I had become too comfortable and sedentary in my life in the city. This motivated me to take my physical health seriously for the first time in my life. It wasn't until January 2022 that I looked at my youngest daughter and said, "Watch this. I'm going to transform my body and show you that if I can become stronger, then all my kids can do the same, because you are all the best of me and even better." And that's what I did. For the next year plus, I started a daily regimen of mountain climbers, starting with 1 minute, and then that quickly became 3 minutes daily for the first thing in the mornings. This motivated me to stay out of my comfort zone as I started learning and growing my knowledge from research done by others who've walked a similar health journey. I watched and read as much information about how to become healthy, and being a diabetic, I knew that I needed to start there. One of the first subjects to come up was addressing metabolic disease like diabetes by addressing the source: blood sugar and glucose levels. This meant cutting away the source of high blood sugar, both processed carbohydrates and refined sugar. I started a ketogenic diet protocol, limiting my intake of carbs and sugars, and quickly I saw an immediate change in my health and mentality. I was feeling more and more confident and more physically healthy. And in doing so, within just a short few months, I had reversed many of my diabetic symptoms, including high blood sugar, my fatty liver, high blood pressure, and more. But the best result was I noticed my depression had lifted. I realized I was no longer feeling bogged down in the mornings, and I had a new gusto for life. I was feeling positive and was excited to get up every morning with the opportunity to become a positive, non-toxic person. I started working with the few people I had left in my life to become a better person each day, and I take that opportunity every single day to be thankful to have them in my life. I'm still working on becoming a positive person, if not for all my children or the people in my life, but at least for the person I have to look at in the mirror in the mornings. My goal is to show all my children that I am truly sorry for not being the father they needed by becoming as close to a person they could be proud of. I don't expect or even wish for forgiveness, but I do sincerely feel sorrow and regret for not transforming myself earlier in life so I could have been a positive influence on them. The least I can do is live the rest of my life striving to be a good, positive person for anyone or anything I come across in this life. There is no peak to which I strive to stand, but only the next step to keep climbing and growing.
All right, so completely skunked today at the jetty, Westport Jetty, but we didn't catch any fish, but Jazz picks up some garbage.
Yep, good.
So
some garbage.
We didn't leave empty-handed. At least got to pick up some trash and contribute a little bit, but
yep,
maybe next time. But now let's go feed the babies.
Yep.